So this is what happens when someone is humble and modest. We asked our speaker to send us a bio, and she sent us like 2 sentences. And then actually afterwards, she added a 3rd sentence, and somehow I sensed that there was just a little bit more to it. Luckily, Dr. Google helped me out, and if anything I say is incorrect, please blame Wikipedia. Let me also report this is the Reader's Digest version of her bio. Vivian Felsen, born in Toronto, correct? Okay, because that was sort of vague. It says comes from Toronto. I don't understand what that means. Okay, born in Toronto, is a Canadian translator from French and Yiddish into English, as well as a visual artist. She holds a BA and MA from the University of Toronto, where she studied French and Russian language and literature, and a law degree from York University. 3 sentences, that's all we got from her, 3 sentences. She is the recipient of the Canadian Jewish Book Award in 2001 and the J.I. Siegel Award in 2004 and 2018 for her translations dealing with Canadian Jewish history and Holocaust memoirs. Apart from translating, Felsen has also authored texts on Yiddish culture and literature. She has contributed to new readings of Yiddish Montreal, Traduire le Montréal Yiddish, edited by Pierre Anctil. I can do the French, but can't do the English. Norman Ravine and Sherry Simon in 2007, written an essay on Canadian Yiddish literature for Canada de Golden and Medina, Perspectives on Canadian Jewish Literature and Culture, Perspectives sur la littérature et la culture juive canadienne, articles on Dora Schulner and Lily Berger for the Jewish Women's Archive website, and on her grandfather, Israel Medrese, for the 2nd edition of Encyclopedia Judaica, 3 sentences. Felsen works as a visual artist with a career spanning several decades. She taught drawing and painting at the Maximat College of Animation, Art and Design, as well as through the Toronto Board of Education. Felsen's works have been exhibited, among others, at Palácio das Artes in Belo Horizonte, Brazil, and at the Gallery Arcturus. She has also been among the jurors for the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition, the Ontario Society of Artists, and the Society of Canadian Artists. Vivian is a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, a longtime and active member of the UJ Federation Committee for Yiddish. That was the 3rd sentence. And today, we'll add, she is the wife of our esteemed birthday boy, Shimmy. It is an honor for me to introduce Vivian Felsen.
Thank you, Barbara. You didn't leave me much room to talk. I don't know where you found out all those things, but a lot of them are not exactly. Anyway, good Shabbos, everybody. When Rabbi Grover told me that he would not be in Toronto on December 14th, the day that we were planning to sponsor a Kiddush in honor of Shim's 80th birthday, he suggested that I deliver the sermon. You can talk about anything you like, he said, and it's only for 15 or 20 minutes. I was really surprised and flattered. I realized that this was an honor. Think about it, he said. Take your time, read the Parsha. After reading Vayishlah, I began to seriously consider delivering the sermon because I had an idea. That was because of the episode of Jacob wrestling with the angel, which we just read this morning. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against Jacob, he wrenched Jacob's hip at the socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But Jacob answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." Said he, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed. This, of course, is the first time that the word Israel appears in the Torah. Coincidentally, although my son, the rabbi, says there are no coincidences, at the time of my conversation with Rabbi Grover, I had been going through boxes of my parents' papers filled with correspondence, as well as clippings from newspaper and magazine articles in both English and Yiddish, and I had come across all the letters and articles relating to the renowned sculptor Nathan Rappaport. His dates are 1911 to 1987. He had become a personal friend of my parents. His monuments and sculptures can be found in many places in Israel and all over the world, including right here in Toronto, on the grounds of the Prosserman JCC, on the Barry and Honey Sherman campus on North Bathurst Street. It depicts the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel, commissioned and donated in 1978 by Alex and Genya Grossman and Joseph and Luba Kleinstein, and it was installed in 1980. Every time people drive into the Prosserman JCC, they drive by that statue. However, in the days following my conversation with Rabbi Grover, when I began to ask people who frequent the JCC or visit occasionally, including my own children and grandchildren, some of whom are right here today, whether they had ever seen that sculpture, few of them had noticed it. That was when I decided that I really did have something to say today. I would talk about Nathan Rappaport, whose message to the world still resonates with as much power and relevance as it did during his lifetime. Nathan Rappaport was born in Warsaw in 1911 to an observant family. His two grandfathers were Hasidim, one a chazan and the other a shoichet. As a child, he loved to draw. At the age of 14, he was determined to become a painter. When he tried to enroll in the Municipal School of Art, all the painting classes were full, so he enrolled in the sculpture class, and this really changed the course of his life. The sculpture professor immediately recognized his talent and tried to help this young man in any way he could, especially when Nathan's father got sick and Nathan was about to leave art school to find work in order to support his family. It was the sculpture professor who found him a job in an architecture workshop owned and operated by an artist. Not only did he learn a great deal, but he was able to earn enough money to support his family, and at the same time, he attended the prestigious Warsaw Academy of Art. There, too, his ability was quickly recognized. In 1936, the Polish government wanted to enter his sculpture entitled Tennis in the Olympics exhibition in Nazi Germany. Rappaport refused to participate in the Nazi Olympics and to receive the prize. As a student in the Academy of Art, he received a scholarship to study art in Italy and France, where he learned from the great classical and Renaissance masters the style and form that he was later to apply to his own creations. In France, he studied monumental sculpture under the leading French artists in the École Supérieure Nationale des Beaux-Arts. On September 7th, 1939, when the Nazis reached Warsaw and young men were encouraged to flee to Russian-occupied Poland to join the Polish army, Nathan Rappaport fled to Białystok with an album of pictures of his work. During the war years in the Soviet Union, he endured much hardship, but he also completed famous sculptures among them a bust of the composer Shostakovich and a monument to the poet Mayakovsky in Novosibirsk. In 1943, when the news reached him about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, he began making sketches for a memorial. After the war, upon his return to Warsaw in 1946, he first presented his sketches to the newly formed Central Committee of Polish Jews, which was happy to accept them. They were then submitted to the Warsaw Art Commission, which readily approved them. The monument needed to be cast in bronze, and part of it had to be carved in granite, which at the time was difficult to obtain in the war-ravaged countries of Europe. It was in Sweden that the artist found the block of granite he used in erecting his monument, a special stone which had been prepared for shipment to the Nazi sculptor Arno Breker for the erection of a monument to Hitler's victory over Europe. In an article by my mother, the late Anne Medras Glass of blessed memory, Rappaport is reported to have said, "Fate willed it that I should use just that stone." There is a photograph which you can find on the internet of Nathan Rappaport at the Swedish quarry where he procured the granite. But there is another photo which I would like to describe to you that I saw for the first time in Warsaw on display at the Jewish Historical Institute. It made an indelible impression on me. In it, you see Rappaport standing all alone on some scaffolding, surrounded in every direction as far as the eye can see by a desert of rubble, working on his famous Warsaw Ghetto Memorial Monument. In an unpublished Yiddish memoir, the late Aaron Feiner of Toronto, who had also been born and raised in Warsaw, described that desolation, and the translation is mine. On the 17th of January, 1945, Warsaw was liberated. 2 days later, I arrived with Colonel Yarotsky and a few others in Warsaw. On the way, Colonel Yarotsky asked me to drive him to the house where he was born at Podwola 15. Of course, I agreed and thought that I would also go to my home at Gęsia 15. After crossing the bridge into Warsaw, it became impossible to drive the car. Warsaw was burning. The Germans, prior to leaving, had systematically set fire to all the houses. There was no one to extinguish the fire, and so it continued to burn. The whole day we crawled over the smoldering ruins of Warsaw, still hot despite the cold weather. We finally arrived at Leszno Street. There I stood paralyzed, unable to move. Wherever I looked, I saw piles of bricks and iron bars, all that was left of the houses where Jews had once lived. There were no streets, no smoking buildings like in the rest of the city. We climbed up a snow-covered hill of bricks and sat down. I do not know how long I sat there, perhaps only a few minutes, perhaps hours. I was paralyzed. I had expected every possibility except total annihilation. How was this possible? How could a city with hundreds of large buildings, courtyards, businesses, people, noise, laughter, crying, music, and singing be destroyed? How did this happen? Where were the members of my family? What had happened to them? Today, as I write these words, it seems to me that I have never recovered from that day when, for the first time, I walked through the ruins of the Warsaw Ghetto. Rappaport's sculptures, like the famous Warsaw Ghetto Monument, speak not only of Jewish martyrdom and resistance, but also Jewish strength and confrontation with moral dilemmas, like Jacob wrestling with the angel. Reminders of the Holocaust are constantly necessary, said Rappaport. The Jewish people have always been in danger. It will never change. It will be very difficult for Israel to have peace. We must accept this fact. I wish there would be peace, but this is a dream. Thus, Nathan Rappaport, who you can see was a prophet in his own right, firmly believed that the Jewish people must find all possible resources to survive. In Harry Rasky's Holocaust Memorial documentary, To Mend the World, Rappaport said, "We must leave as much as possible so the world can understand what happened." On June 21st, 1972, Nathan Rappaport was in Toronto as a guest of the Toronto Jewish community, where he addressed a rally that was held at the Shara Shamayim. I'm going to read the notice that appeared in the Jewish Standard in May of 1972. Nathan Rappaport will appear at a public rally during which he will share with the community the ideas and motifs which have inspired his monumental works. He will present a film and slides illustrating his creative art. His visit will be an historic event. All organizations, as well as the entire community, are invited to participate in this rally, where they can express their gratitude and appreciation to the artist who has done so much to honor the memory of our 6 million. And on the same page it says, "It is with special pride and pleasure that the United Organizations for Histadrut have grasped the opportunity of welcoming this great artist to do him the honor which he so richly merits. Many members of the United Organization for Histadrut are themselves survivors of the ghettos. They experienced firsthand the sadistic cruelty of the concentration camps. They miraculously escaped they escaped the crematory of the Nazis. Many of them risked their lives in the partisan brigades which fought the German armies in the forests and marshes of Eastern Europe. They understand and appreciate the genius of Nathan Rappaport, who has created such enduring monuments to the memory of their brothers and sisters, their fathers and mothers, their husbands and wives, who were robbed of their right to live out their lives by the unspeakable cruelty of the Nazis. It is especially important as the agony of the Holocaust recedes in time, and remember, these words were written in 1972, that such interpreters of the tragedy be heard. It has been said that with each passing year, the book of the Holocaust has been reduced from a book to a chapter, from a chapter to a page, from a page to a sentence. To those who experienced the misery of the concentration camps, those who escaped by so narrow a margin the deadly fate which overtook their friends, their neighbors, their loved ones, the years of the Holocaust are a nightmare which they will never forget. To those who shared the horror of that time, even in the safety of North America, the Holocaust remains as ever-present and an unforgettable experience in Jewish history. But there is now a new generation which has had no contact with the Holocaust, either in time or space. They too must share in the terrible tragedy of the catastrophe that overwhelmed European Jewry, the Jewry of Poland, Ukraine, and Lithuania, the Jewry of Hungary and Romania, the Jewry of Holland and France and Germany and Russia. Nathan Rappaport is the representative of all those who died. He is the messenger of those who survived. He is the conscience of those who lived through the disaster and the security of the Western Hemisphere. He is the interpreter of the meaning of the Holocaust to those who were too young to know of it firsthand. But Nathan Rappaport comes to us today from Israel with a message of hope. The courage of the heroes of the Warsaw Ghetto is also the courage of Israeli heroes, such as the defenders of Kibbutz Negba, who are the subject of his monumental tribute to Jewish valor. And we can add the courage of the IDF soldiers today. As he searches for the meaning of loneliness and suffering and despair, Nathan Rappaport is able to give us a sense of the infinite greatness of man, created just a little lower than the angels. Shabbat Shalom.